This discussion of Final Fantasy VII Remake by the Nerd Corporation podcast may contain spoilers and explicit language. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to the Nerd Corporation.
Hello, everyone out there. My name is SImper, and this is my, it's my Final Fantasy VII Remake discussion, review, retrospective, whatever you want to call it. It's basically just going to be my thoughts on the game and how it made me feel on my insides, and let's just get on with it. So, if you've been listening to the podcast pretty much at all, you kind of know that I'm a big mega fan of the original game. Final Fantasy VII for the PS1 basically was one of those like breakthrough titles for me. They got it to the point, like it showed me that video games are more than just jumping on turtles and not really just saving the princess, but also wondering if the princess has, thoughts and ideas and a character of her own. It was one of those super amazing titles for me that kind of just showed me that video games are more than what I had been used to at that point, excuse me. So it has incredibly relevant themes for not only back in 1997, but for today as well. And those themes of loss and kind of trying to figure out the world that you're in after the one that you were in before kind of crumbled. It's and it's a big story about identity and figuring out who you really are and how you feel about things and how you go about overcoming obstacles in your life, and the themes of the original game really hit home for me a lot of the time, and besides anime sword boys with big swords that doesn't make any sense why they're so big and stuff like that, and it was, I know I wasn't the only one, but it's not a first for Final Fantasy, but it was my first for a video game, as the death of a beloved character and everything, and kind of just showing us hey, death is something that's going to happen, and that's just something that you kind of have to deal with, unfortunately. And so that's just kind of, if you've been listening to the podcast, you already know I'm a big fucking huge dweeb for the game, so that's nothing new for you. So they announced that this was a project in 2015, and I'll never forget where I was when I heard the news about this happening, and that's pretty much it. They kind of just dropped a bombshell on us, and then after that it was, hey, look forward to it. And boy howdy did we look forward to it, because we didn't get anything else for the next 2-3 years, I believe. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was a long fucking time to wait for information on such a beloved title. People have been asking for a remake of Final Fantasy VII for as long as I've been alive, almost, which is pretty wild to think about. And so we didn't get any information whatsoever, besides a snippet of gameplay that was not well, that wasn't indicative of anything that we see in the game today in 2020, but we got a little snippet at the end of that year, but that was pretty much it. We didn't get any information until last year, around this time actually, and then the doors kind of flew wide open, and we started seeing gameplay and what they were doing, and they were really nailing home the fact that it's going to be in multi-parts, much to its, I don't really want to say to detriment, because I feel like this story can be handled really well in a reverent way, and we will definitely be talking about that, because there is some possibility that they might not be doing that and it scares the fuck out of me. That's kind of why it's been so long for me to do this, is because I don't really know how I feel going forward about this project. I will tell you that there have been times where I was elated, and there were times where I kind of wish they didn't even fucking bother, because now I have hair losing anxiety over what they're going to do to this game. I've been very vocal about my distaste for Nomura, Tetsuya Nomura, who is unfortunately the director of the entire project, which is fucking terrifying to me. It was terrifying to me when they announced it. It's still terrifying to me to this day, and I've played the fucking game. So take that with how you will. I've been very vocal, and I'm sure a lot of you can go and hear my rant review about Kingdom Hearts 3. Let's get into it. The main thing about this game is that it really does handle a lot of what it does with care. There's a large amount of reverence for these characters, for these moments, not only for the interactions, but for the new stuff that they've added as well. The new stuff that they've added is fine, but there's a very obvious tinge of, okay, not only is this new, but it feels pretty filler. But that's only some of it. Some of it is actually really compelling shit that makes sense. And at the end of this little ramble, I'm gonna have like a little spoiler section where I'm going to dissect how I feel about stuff. But most of the additions are actually really, really good. I really dig some of like in the original game there would be parts where it would imply things that happened, or it would just run through a topic really quickly without going into details of said thing. But in this game, they really do hammer home like the details of it. Like there's a moment earlier in the game, like this is I think like chapter 3, where they start talking about separate factions of Avalanche, where in the original game it wasn't really kind of a thing. They might have alluded to the fact that there were different cells in Avalanche, but it wasn't really like a big thing. Like you were Avalanche, you were this, this eco-terrorism group that's blowing the shit out of, important shit to Shinra, the Shinra company. And in this game it kind of dives a little deeper into what that might be, what that might look like. In this game they're kind of pariahs, like Avalanche was considered, this Avalanche that in the remake that you're part of is considered to be a little overzealous, takes things a little too far, and I like that aspect a lot. Well, I mean, and we'll leave that for the spoiler talk, but I like some of the filler stuff, but it kind of feels like there is, you can't get too far away from that little pang of like, okay, this is that feeling of this is filler, like it's not it's not something you can really avoid. Like I said, a large amount of reverence to these characters and events, and it starts off with obviously the Dolly Inn and checking out the city of Midgar. What's really cool is a new addition is like the beginning is like it pans down into the upper plate, so we kind of get to see how the good life is, like all these people living in some really high class shit. It's usually people that work with Shinra or work for Shinra. So, and then it dives down into, Aerith, in the Aeris or Aerith, however you want to say it. I try really hard to say Aerith because I know that's like the thing now. We we don't fucking talk about Aeris anymore, which is really sad. But that intro, man, fucking, I remember playing the demo and just thinking like, holy fuck, they're nailing it. Like every single bit of it is just being absolutely nailed. And that's how it is for the majority of the game. So if you're like super worried about it diverging too much, It doesn't really. The only shit that gets like kind of hokey is at the end, and like I said, we'll talk about that later. So if you are planning on buying this game, totally totally spoiler free, if you're buying this game expecting it to, have a lot of care put into how these characters interact and how these events unfold, you won't be disappointed, barring that ending. The voice acting in this game is top notch. Like seriously, it's really really good. There's still that, like weird anime bullshit where people like or like grunt or some shit. Like I don't know why we have to have this. It's just like it's a byproduct of something Japanese that kind of just happens, and you kind of just learn to deal with it, unfortunately. But, regardless, it's there. If it bugs you, I'm sorry, but there's not really a whole lot you can do. But the fact is that every one of these voice actors are top fucking notch. Every single one of them sounds great. They fit into their role perfectly. Cloud Strife is finally being represented the way that he should be. He's not this emo sad boy that's just sad all the fucking time for no fucking reason at all. Like, Cloud's a fucking badass, and he's never really been represented like that outside of the original game. And even then, like, like how much fucking how much characterization can you put into like polygons and text screens? You know what I mean? Like, it's really hard, but like as a kid, like imagining how this character would sound and how he would act and everything, like everything past the original 1997 game, he's just kind of like nobody hit the mark. It's fucking weird. Like and like I understand in Advent Children they were trying to go for like he's like processing grief and everything, and I will defend that. To I will die on that fucking hill that's something that he had to go through, but they could have went through it with a little bit more, like a little bit more grace. But yeah, Cloud Strife is the biggest standout for me because he's finally being portrayed the way that he should be. I really like Tifa. I really like Aerith. Everyone had a fucking problem with how Barrett sounded in the beginning, but he, like, seriously, in chapter 2, he just, like, gets toned down, like a lot. Like, if you were to, as soon as you watch him, like, interact with Marlene, his surrogate daughter, like, if you could just, like, understand, like, how much his character changes as soon as that little girl enters the room, or he enters the room with her in it as well. Like, everything changes. Like, he's not this almost kind of stereotypical problem that Japanese people have depicting black people. It's really great, and I really love his actor. He's just kind of the right amount of boisterous, and that's exactly how Barrett is in the original. Just so you know, I'm going to be comparing it to the original a lot. Doy. But if you were to look back at the old game, like he swears a ton, like, and he's always yelling, he's always shooting his gun arm in the air, and he's just kind of a douche, to to put it simple. And so it just works really well, and he's goofy and he's crazy and he's a little loud. That's the only way I really describe it, is he's loud. People probably still have a problem with that, but I think it was handled really well. Let's see. Yeah, Tifa was great. I mean, I like how they're really hammering home the idea that she's conflicted with all of this going on. Let's see. We get a lot of new details and information on 3 characters that were pretty underlooked, if that's a word, underlooked. We didn't really get to see them a lot in the original, and that's Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge. And the characterization that they put into these characters, I feel like goes a long way, just because it handles it's kind of a byproduct of taking a 3 to 4 hour chunk of the original game and turning it into this 40-hour massive game. But you get to learn more about Jesse and how like her whole reason for fighting and how the reason why she joined Avalanche. Not so much with Biggs and Wedge. Biggs, you get a little bit into his story, and Wedge not really at all. He kind of just hangs out. If I remember right, I don't know, but it's kind of cool to see like Jessie has her own. Well, I guess it's all three of them kind of have their own little mission that you go onto that's completely new to the game. It didn't happen in the original at all, and it's kind of cool to like just see how these characters would be, outside of being part of Avalanche. Which is really cool in my book, because I never really had a fondness for those characters, just because I knew, like, they're gonna die. Spoiler alert for a fucking 23-year-old video game, but in the original game they die. They die before you leave Midgar. They die before you even go to Shinra headquarters. Like, that's like 2 hours in. So they were never really given any kind of treatment at all. So yeah, that love and care that they got put into their characters is appreciated, definitely. I guess we can talk about Sephiroth a little bit. He's in the game, not nearly as much as I feared he would be. In the original game, you don't meet Sephiroth until the very, very tail end of Midgar, and even then, you really don't even know what he looks like. Like, he has a moment where he, kills off a certain character, and then you're kind of just there to deal with the fallout of that character death, and it's that's pretty much it. Like, really, like, there's just a moment where Cloud's like, oh shit, Sephiroth's still alive, and voila, ladies and gentlemen, we have a video game. We got to go chase after Sephiroth. But in this game, he shows up a lot, and there's some new developments with his character that I feel like super fucking do well for the story. Like, honestly, I think it's really, really great, the new elements that they've introduced into his story and in his relationship with Cloud, and I'm wondering how it's going to work out in the end, because there's not really a whole lot more that should be said about those two characters' relationship, but it seems to be that we're getting it, so just got to deal with it. I would like to just leave that off with Sephiroth, because there's a lot of spoiler talk that we'll get into with him. So obviously the main story is pretty much just you're following as Cloud Strife, an ex-mercenary or an ex-soldier. So he used to work for a soldier group, or like an army branch within Shinra called Soldier. He is considered a first-class soldier, which is the highest of the high. Like, this is their big fucking guns. Like, if they have any problems at all, they'll send in like one of these guys and they'll fucking do the job. Like, first soldier is a big fucking deal, and first class soldier. And so we're led to believe that he left Shinra for some reason. He is now a mercenary. He's just working for money, and in the beginning he's a real big dick to to just about everybody. He kind of just puts off this, like, oh, I'm big bad guy, I'm the big dog, and I only fuck with money, like that, like, pay me my money, much to I feel like his detriment to as a character, but it works as a as a story element, because he's just not really understood by anybody, and people relentlessly make fun of Cloud in this game, and it's fucking awesome, because Cloud is like just the biggest douche for no reason at all, and everyone's like, why are you so fucking serious about everything? like fucking chill out, we're just sitting here trying to have a beer, like, you don't need to fucking stew over us, and throughout the game you kind of see him start to come around and open up to these people, and his relationship that he has with Tifa is fucking awesome, because they're just acting towards each other like they're childhood friends, because they're from the same village or same town or whatever you want to call it, which is really cool. But it's just fucking awesome how everyone just like relentlessly makes fun of Cloud for being so uptight. And so you're part of Avalanche, and Avalanche's whole goal is to basically fuck with Shinra. Shinra is this power company in the town, or in the city of Midgar, and Midgar is built upon these two plates, like two metal plates. So the upper level is kind of like, you know, the upperclassmen, like they're the people that are rich and you know, usually work for Shinra, and they're making pretty good money, and they have one, and a really nice house and a family and blah 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 blah. And then there's the lower plate, which is, you know, kind of the slummy parts. Like they're just like shoddy villages that have been created out of fucking metal that has fallen from the above plate and shit. Like they're just kind of trying to just get along, like, which is really wild to when you see it, because like you look up when you're playing the game and you look up and you see these, just this big metal sky with like lights and everything in it. It's like, seriously, it's one of the prettiest fucking things I've ever seen in a video game, just how well they handled it. And you know, you couldn't look up in the original game, like they were all, you know, like pre-rendered like pictures, you know. Like they were just like pieces that you were pictures that you were walking on, you know. So it's really kind of cool to see, look up and see like that level of detail that's put into this world, and the world building in this game is fucking awesome. You know, obviously it lends a lot of itself to the original game. You know, like a lot of the original game is where they get obviously all their inspiration, but the stuff on the life on the bottom plate is not good at all. Like Shinra basically just ignores them, and there's like scenes where you go upwards and you see like the air filtration, and it's basically just like spitting all the bad shit from up on the upper plate down onto the bottom plate. So these people don't have it good, and so enter Avalanche. Their whole reason is just to like protect the planet, save the planet. And the reason why they're doing that is because Shinra is using these giant reactors to suck up this stuff called, I think it's called Mako. That's what they call it now. I used to call it Mako, but it's not Mako, it's Mako. Mako is basically the lifeblood of the planet. Think like, I don't really know if there's anything like you can use for like real life, but it's a finite resource, and Shinra just keeps sucking it up and using it, and uses it for their power company. It's think like fossil fuels. Like there's only a certain amount before we run out, and then when we run out, we're fucked, and we've, you know, ran the planet dry. But in this game, it's not running the planet dry, it's like killing the planet. So the planet is like about to, you know, can't give too much more. So Avalanche's whole goal is to terrorize Shinra, the Shinra company. And so that's what you're doing in the first mission, is you're blowing up a fucking reactor. So which is wild to think about, like that's even a thing in 2020. Like it was a thing in 1997, and it was a radical idea back then. So it's wild to think that it's still happening today. You know, like they were able to get away with it without any controversy, because you're basically playing as an eco-terrorist, you know, like, and that's kind of one of the cool things about it too, is like they really, really fucking make you feel that pang of guilt. Like chapter 2 is you walking through the sector of the reactor that you just blew up, and watching like all these fucking people's lives just like fall apart. Like one person's house is on fucking fire, and then there's a little girl screaming for their mom and dad. Like you really feel it, which is another one of those additions where it's like, okay, this feels necessary. This feels really good. This is, you know, it adds on to the story, making the original story better. You know what I mean? And I'm going to keep this in mind when I go back and play the original game, is this scene of you walking through that devastation. So, you know, you just feel the guilt of your actions, and then after that, there's some busy work. The side quests in the game aren't great. They definitely feel like padding. Like I said, they're just kind of like typical fucking JRPG shit. Like I don't really know if we're gonna see too many more of those in the next couple games, just because it felt like something they kind of just had to do in this game. And like once you think about it, the chapters that introduce side quests are the longest for sure, because if you're going to do all those, it's going to take like 3 to 4 hours. I think there's like 20, there's either 26 or 28 side quests in the game, and some of them are fulfilling and some of them are just straight up fucking busy work. So don't expect to go into this game thinking that the side quests are all that, because they really aren't. But there are some side quests that get you some really cool shit, so they're definitely worth doing. Just don't really expect to have like a grand time doing them. Let's see. To go into any more story stuff, I don't feel would be wise, just because of spoiler reasons. So we'll just leave it at that. And then we will go on to my second favorite thing about this entire game, which is the battle system. The battle system in this game is easily the best one that Square has ever made. I know there was a lot of people doubting whether or not this was going to be fun or not. This is a fucking blast. I can tell you right now, this is so much fun. And it's kind of the reason why the momentum in the game really never lets go, is because even when you're doing these side quests, some of the side quests don't involve combat at all, but most of them do. You know, like there's side quests where you're going and you know, like you're clearing out a monster nest or something like that. You know, typical side quest shit. But the reason why those side quests are so much fun is because of this battle system. This battle system just works really well, and it's something that I feel like Square has really, really fucking been trying to just nail for a long ass time. They felt like they had it in 15, but there was just something lost in 15's combat. Final Fantasy 15, I'm sorry. The 15's combat. You know, this is kinetic, it's fast paced, it's fun, it's strategic for that element that you want. A lot of people, you know, really didn't want this fucking game at all, because they thought that it was going to be just, you know, Kingdom Hearts all over again, and it kind of is, but not really, because there's a large amount of strategy that goes into the majority of the title. A lot of people thought it was just going to be fucking Kingdom Hearts again. And to a certain extent, it kind of is, but not really. Because there's a large amount of strategy that gets put into it. So you enter into a fight, you know, just for simplicity's sake, we'll just say you enter a fight with Cloud, right? Cloud has a basic moveset, a basic combo, just by pressing square, right? So he's just got like a couple different moves, like a base combo. And then it goes just a touch deeper, where you can do you can hold square, and he does like this crazy spin AoE attack that hits everything like around him, basically. So that's really kind of cool, and just like, you know, it's kind of like, it doesn't go as deep as like Devil May Cry, but like it kind of does, because you can, you know, you can press square 3 times and he'll do like 3 hits of his combo, and then he can hold square and then he'll do that circle attack and hit everybody. And so like you can kind of get a little stylish with it, you know? Like there are some enemies in the game that only take like 2 or 3 hits from the Buster Sword and they're fucking dead. So it's kind of cool just to start out with 1 slash and then do the AoE attack, and then they're all fucking dead. You know, like it's super, super fucking satisfying. But then you introduce the triangle move. For Cloud, it's different for every character. So Cloud has, when you press triangle, it puts him into Punisher mode. So this is like it's a different stance. So he has the attacks are wider, so they have like a bigger distance that they can clear by hitting. And he also does like, if an enemy is like too far away, he does like this crazy hop and it'll hit him, you know, hit the enemies like that. Or he'll end up doing a shit ton of damage, because these attacks hit a lot fucking harder. And so if you remember, I said that the original combo had a move where you could hold square and that would do that AoE attack, right? So for this, he does this like thrust downward, but if you time it just right, you get a buff on Cloud. So like he's a little bit stronger. Like he gets just a duration of time where he's a little bit stronger, and every time he hits, he's hitting a lot stronger. The only trade-off for going into Punisher mode is that when you are moving, you're moving very slowly. So like it's kind of implied that you want to be into Punisher mode when you're near enemies. There's also the counter that happens when you go into Punisher mode. If you There's two different ways to do it. So if you time it just right and you press triangle right when an enemy is going to attack, he's going to counter and he's going to hit really hard. Or you can be in Punisher mode and then hold R1 to guard, and then it doesn't work for like magic attacks or like projectiles like bullets or anything. But if it's a physical attack, if you just hold R1, he'll do the combo just like that. And that's how I mainly did it. I never really timed it because I fucking suck at timing. But so that's really cool. And that's basically Cloud. But what's cool is that, so that's pretty much the length of the Kingdom Hearts shit. So you go into this thing called tactical mode. And tactical mode basically slows everything down to a crawl and lets you think of what your next move's going to be. So you have like your materia spells and your special moves and such. Like Cloud has Braver and Focus Thrust, and these are just cool moves. Braver does a ton of damage, and Focus Thrust does a lot of stagger damage. Stagger's a thing. It pretty much works the same way as it does in Final Fantasy XIII. So if you stagger an enemy, they have like a little bar underneath their health that continues to fill up, and if you fill it up all the way, then they get staggered, and then it has like a certain amount of time where you can do a shit ton of damage to them. Basically, that's pretty much it. Just you. So there's ATB gauges that are filling up as you play the game. They'll slowly fill up, but you'll fill them up really quickly if you're just doing attacks. So I never really had a problem with ATB gauges filling up too slow. Like if you ever needed one, it's pretty much a guarantee that you have at least one. That's how you heal in the game. Like you can't even use items at all without ATB gauges, which really works because like if you could just spam items like you could in 15, like it just completely gets rid of the difficulty. But you know, if you go about it doing like let's say you're just running around and you are about to fucking die, like you have to run around just enough. If you're too scared to like get some hits in, you're just gonna have to run around until at least one of those ATB gauges fills up, and then you can heal. So and the cool thing is that Cloud is his own character. You still have 3 other characters that play completely different. And I'm not going to go into like what makes every character really cool, because obviously if you're going to buy this game, you probably already did. But it's really cool, and it's fun, and it's fluid, and it fucking works, and it's cool as hell. Like this is about as good as it's going to get if it wasn't just going to be, turn-based like everyone wanted it to be. But I'm here to tell you that it's fucking fun as hell. Like really, if you have any qualms about it at all, just give it a shot. Play the fucking demo, because that demo is perfect, showing you everything that happens. So now we'll get into performance on the PS4. I played mine on a PS4 Pro, and the game handles really well. I didn't have any crashes, first and foremost, and I think that's really important. No crashes whatsoever. I didn't have any like crazy glitches or anything. The game handles itself really well. The only problem is, and this could be fixed by now, but I'm not really sure. I stopped playing it as soon as I beat it, but there's a problem with textures in the game, and they're actually like really, really bad, like PlayStation 2 bad, which is saying something. But it's definitely, I think, something that could be fixed with just a patch. I mean, obviously it's a huge fucking game, so they're gonna have to, that patch is gonna take a long time. But and personally, I'd rather them just fucking leave it alone and just get to work on the next part. But hey, that's just me. It works really well. Please, like it's not a fucking problem at all. The game design is fucking amazing. The way that like certain like sky pieces look, like I talked about how when you look up at the upper plate and see like all the mechanic imagery and everything like that, there's a moment where it's like daytime and there's like a crack in the sky where you can like kind of see the light. Keep in mind, these people don't see the sun. Like Shinra built artificial sun lamps to give people like the feeling of sun, but it's not really the sun. So people don't really understand what it feels like to like stand out in the sun. So and once you like really think about like the logistics of that and how fucked up that is, that's really saying something. Like the world building in this game is top notch. But again, it was already built beforehand. It's fucking gorgeous. Like seriously, there's some times where I'm like, this is like photorealistic and it's crazy, and like I understand that like most, it's a Japanese video game and there's characters that look like anime boys and girls, but it really does look really great. And like the fucking sparks that fly when every time you hit something with the Buster Sword is still mind blowing to me. I got almost 50 hours in this game and it's still so satisfying to play, and how it looks, and besides those texture issues, it really is a visual pleaser. It's I wouldn't go as far to say it's the best looking game on the PS4, but holy fuck, it's pretty close. Seriously, it's really close. And on to my favorite part of this entire video game. And this is the one thing that they just absolutely had to nail for it to be something that I'm willing to recommend. And it's the music. The music in this game is fucking amazing. It's... I think it's industry standard. And I don't really hesitate to say that at all. I think this is an industry standard. Like, this is something that every single video game should strive to be. Every video game music soundtrack should strive to be. This is the way that they handled the reverence in every single piece, and not only that, but like making some of the musical pieces better. Like there's a moment that slap a big fucking silly grin on my face is when you're first going into Wall Market, and that song that plays is goofy in the original, but this one they played up the hamminess and the goofiness of it, and then all of a sudden it turns into like this crazy fucking techno dubstep track, and it's fucking really great. There's not a single bad song in it. Like there's a CD, like soundtrack CD that Square's selling on their website for a very nicely priced $77.77, and I love how they did that. But of the entire soundtrack, and you bet your fucking ass I bought that shit, because this soundtrack it's like, honest to God, it's really something special that just elevates this game to something else completely. It's not like the original soundtrack is something that I'm always going to hold dear, for nostalgia's sake, but this just elevates it to this whole fucking different upper echelon of being. Like it's like I said, industry standard. Like everyone should try to strive to be this good with this soundtrack. The way that the opening is, I mean, it's not a spoiler obviously because you've seen it before, but the way that it dollies down onto Earth and it starts playing the beginnings of the bombing mission, I can't tell you how many times it was just the music that made me cry in this game. Like the characters and everything, and I love these characters to death, I really do. But every time I found myself like welling up or tearing up or anything, it was the music. Absolutely nailed it out of the fucking park. It's that good. It really is. So now I'm probably just going to get into a little bit of spoiler talk. So now I'm going to get into the spoiler talk. If you're here, welcome. You just finished the game and your head is just as fucked as mine is. Or it's not, and you enjoy the Nomura fuckery that he just so loves to do. He just really loves to put his finger in your ear hole and just kind of twist a lot and just expect you to understand it. So the majority of the game is great. It's pretty much just like the last 2 hours of the game where everything kind of just goes like bonkers and it just doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever. without like hours and hours of contemplation of like what the fuck are they doing, you know. Where it starts getting a little fucky is pretty much the beginning of the game, where they announce these fucking weird whisper things, like arbiters of, I think they're called arbiters of faith or fate, which is fucking stupid. Yeah, it's fucking stupid, because Final Fantasy VII has always had this level of realism to it. Obviously, it's called Final Fantasy. No, it's not real. These things don't happen. They're not real. But it has realistic things in it. You know, like oppression is very real. Dealing with death is very real. Grief is very real. These themes still carry out to this day. Like, you can play FF7, the original, and understand what they're going for with these themes. They're realistic topics to be talked about, and they're great elements of storytelling. Fate, or destiny, have you, either one, are not real. They're not real things, okay? They're just plot devices. And they're lazy plot devices. And so these fucking arbiters of fate are swooping in and making sure I call them plot ghosts, because they're fucking stupid. They come in here and they try to, it's implied that they're making things happen, right? Like, it's implied that they're trying to keep that original storyline going. So I'm gonna kind of go into some big brain topics here. So if you don't understand, I'm sorry. that's pretty much just Nomura. That's the Nomura coming out of this. These arbiters of faith fate are trying to maintain the storyline beats of the original game. Okay, that's their whole thing. So things start to dive off into real, or to like, say something's going to happen, right? And it doesn't happen the way that it's supposed to. These arbiters of fate come down and redirect it, right? So let's say in the original game, on day 57, Cloud is supposed to take a dump, right? Because that's what happens in the original game, okay? Now let's say in Remake, for some reason, that day, Cloud doesn't need to poop. It's childish shit, but like, this is the only way I know how to describe it. The arbiters of fate, and it seems like their power is abundant. Like, they can just make things happen. They will make it so Cloud has to poop. It's wild, I know. But you know what else it is? It's fucking lazy. It's lazy storytelling. And it's not nearly as fucking crazy as Nomura wants to think that it is. Like, there's a moment, here's a good example. There's a moment at the very end of the game where Sephiroth just straight up fucking kills Barret. Like a character that was in the original game all the way to the end. You know, he sees credits in the original game, but Sephiroth just straight up fucking kills him in the Shinra building, and so he's dead on the ground. And wouldn't you know it, one of the fucking arbiters of fate comes out and like fucking heals him, brings him back to life, and it just kind of takes the potency of that moment out of it. You know what I mean? Like, people would have been fucking pissed if Barret dies at that moment, but like, the fact that they couldn't commit to it is a fucking problem. You know what I mean? Like why do that scene at all? Like, you're really, the only thing that you're portraying in that scene is the fact that these arbiters of fate have abundant fucking powers that they can bring people back from the dead. And it's lazy. It's lazy storytelling. And Nomura likes to think that this ambiguity that he has is so fucking profound, but it's not. It's fucking lazy. It's lazy storytelling, and it's not nearly as great as you think it is. Okay? So, by the end of the game, these arbiters of fate are the big bad, right? So it's a Final Fantasy game, and you have to have a big bad at the end. You got to have a big boss battle. And, it's a cool battle. I'm not going to lie. But there's just like, it just feels so out of place and so unearned. Like, it's not earning this. It's not earning this payoff. Like this, they expected it to be like, oh, we're killing fate. That's the whole thing. Like they have like these moments where it like beams, like they're like these little strands of light that like that hit the characters in their head, and then it shows them like the future basically, and it is the future. Like it's, I mean, it's kind of lazy because it's just like shots of Advent Children, which is like, could you really not render new scenes for this? Like, that's just a nitpick. That doesn't really fucking matter. But they show them the future, and this is the future of these characters. Like, this is what is supposed to happen for these characters. One of the things is Cloud fighting Sephiroth in the very end in the Northern Crater, and then one of them is Red 13 running in the canyon with his little cubs, and then I'm sure there was another one. But these are the events that are supposed to happen. And as a fan of the original game, you're like, yeah, this is their fate, quote unquote. Like, this is what's supposed to happen, But Red 13 comes and says, like, this is what's going to happen if we fail today, leading everyone to believe that they don't want this timeline to happen. They don't want these events to happen, even though in these events that are happening, they win. They beat Sephiroth. They fucking save the world. Why wouldn't they want that to happen? These are the questions that are going through your head when you're fighting this fucking end boss. It's like, why would we want to prevent? And granted, like, that original game, characters die. Obviously, if you've gotten this far, you know that Aerith dies. In the original game, Aerith dies in the original game, okay? Whatever. Spoiler for a 23-year-old game. So, Aerith dies. So, and it just makes me think, like, okay, but Aerith's death has fucking importance behind it. She needs to die. And that sounds really fucked up, but, like, it's kind of the whole fucking reason why they win in the end, is because Aerith helps out from the live stream. Aerith is not a human being. She's a human being, but she's a descendant of a fucking much higher race of beings. They're called the Cetra, and they're kind of fucking known for being part of the planet, like for being able to talk to the planet and such. They're kind of fucking important. And she's the last one alive. So when she dies, it's her going into like her heritage or whatever you want to say it, but she's part of the planet. And so that's what ends up stopping Meteor and blowing up the fucking Earth. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense on why they would want to change that. And this is kind of the head right here of my grief with this game. They want to change things. Yeah, they want to change a lot of stuff with this game. And I, being the mega fan that I am, and knowing that there is a lot of not only opportunity, but a lot of there's a lot of potential for adding to the story of this game. And they've proven that they can with certain story elements that they've added into this game. They've added some stuff that makes sense and has made the original game better for it. However, the changes that they are planning on making don't make any fucking sense whatsoever. Okay? I understand that Aerith is a beloved character. I love Aerith. I tear up every fucking time I hear Aerith's theme. That's how it is. But that's because those original moments are so poignant. Is because of that character and her sacrifice. That's the whole fucking point, folks. if she fucking dies off, what's the fucking point? What's gonna happen? And that is what scares the holy shit out of me, is that they're going to change this story so much to the point where they completely lose the plot. The whole reason of why FF7 was such a fucking landmark title to begin with. It scares me. And they're doing it in more than one way. We'll get to that in a minute. But anyways, the Arbiters of Fate, like the boss fight's cool. They fucking form into one big one and you fight that thing and whatever. It's cool because it's a lot of Advent Children shit. It's a lot of fucking Cloud jumping on debris, flying in the air. It's very anime. And I'm about that shit. It's really cool. But I can see how it turns a lot of people off because it's like, weren't we just fighting like rats on the ground like 10 hours ago? and now we're like slicing trains in half and shit. Midair. So after you defeat the Arbiters of Fate, the true boss comes down. And guess who it is? It's our favorite silver-haired anime guy, Sephiroth. And I'm not going to lie to you, when this fucking guy came down and it starts playing One Winged Angel, I fucking screamed at my TV. I was like, no fucking way are they doing this right now. You fight Sephiroth. The end boss fight is with Sephiroth, and it starts out with just Cloud. Like, it's just Cloud fighting him, and then all of a sudden it's, like your teammates get introduced, like, in between, like, little segments. This is like probably one of the most satisfying video game things I've ever been a part of. I think it's fucking amazing. It kind of worries me for like what the end boss fights are going to happen in the next couple games, because they kind of blew their load already. But like, it's fucking incredible. Like, Sephiroth's moveset is really cool. It's reminiscent of like the end of the original game, which is really cool. He's got like Heartless Angel and stuff like that, where it completely drains your character of everything. So not only your health, but your MP as well. So you're kind of scrambling around trying to be able to heal yourself before he fucking slashes you in half. This shit is really fucking cool, and it worked for me. It really did. And it kind of makes sense, like Sephiroth is the main antagonist of the game, with a kind of like a a loving nod to Shinra, which is the second biggest thing, biggest enemy in the game. But they had to build him up, and they had to build him up in a way where they made him feel like he was super powerful and such. But if you know anything about the original game, you know that this isn't Sephiroth. This is just somebody that's kind of like a puppet. So it's really fucking cool, and it works. And the new rendition of One Winged Angel is like orgasm good. Like, it's so fucking insane how well. I've heard 30,000 different renditions of One Winged Angel throughout my life, and this is a new one, and it still gives me like the chills, and still sends like that scaredy, like like I'm fucking scared of this guy just because of his music. So it's a cool boss fight, and I loved every single fucking minute of it, including the new end. So, in a loving nod to the original game, there's a scene very reminiscent of like the last interaction with Sephiroth, where you in the original game, it seems like it's taking place in like Cloud's mind. So it's like, it's kind of like a black area, and you're just like fighting him right there. But this is a cutscene, and he takes you off to like the edge of creation, and he starts spouting all this fucking nonsense about, hey, Cloud, come join me, do whatever the fuck I'm gonna be doing. Because in the remake, you don't really know what he's doing. He's just spouting off all this fucking nonsense about how he wants to go to the Promised Land and reclaim the earth and blah, reclaim the planet, blah blah blah. And he starts talking all this nonsense about 7 seconds. Like, you have 7 seconds, and what are you going to do with it? And so everyone's like theorizing, like what does it mean? Everyone, they're like people that were saying like, oh, it's 7 seconds to save Aerith. Like, because it's 7 seconds on him flying down and stabbing her in the chest, And then, but it's pretty much been confirmed that it's 7 seconds before the world is devastated by meteor. So theories abound. I'm sure people are gonna have a fucking ball with that, and they are. So let's talk about that the very end. So quick little inner thing. Before the main boss fights, right? Before the boss gauntlet at the end, we get a really weird cutscene of a soldier fighting Shinra infantry, and for some reason he has the Buster Sword. And it's taking place on the outskirts of Midgar. And so everyone's thinking like, what the fuck is Cloud doing out here? And then it pans up and it's revealed to be Zack Fair. So for those of you who don't know, and I'm sure you already do, Zack Fair is kind of the whole fucking reason why Cloud is the way he is, right? The way he acts. So in the original game, Zack Fair was the first class soldier, right? So Cloud had these big ambitious dreams about how he was going to run off to Midgar and he was going to become a first-class soldier just like Sephiroth, right? That was his whole fucking dream, was to go out there and make a name for himself and become this big badass soldier that can do anything and save Tifa. That was like his whole fucking point, is he wanted to be able to protect Tifa. So, obviously, Cloud never got that far. Cloud only became like a Shinra infantryman, like, you know, and we learned most of this through the original game, but it was further touched upon in Crisis Core, the PSP title. So a lot of shit happened, and a lot of traumatic shit happened to Cloud, where he basically watched his like friends get slaughtered, and his friend, he made a friend in Zack, and watching him get killed is, you know, it's pretty wild. A lot of traumatic shit happens to Cloud, and that's kind of what happens is, and what makes Cloud such a compelling character is the fact that he's kind of fucked up. Like, there's mixed in with some scientific experimentation fuckery that happens with him. He's also like was so stricken with trauma that it kind of really fucked him up in the head, and he didn't know how to handle it. So mix that in with some experimentation that was happening at the hands of Professor Hojo, who's super fucking well done in the remake, by the way. Like, he's just this like creepy, crawly fucking weirdo, and it's amazing. The way that they handled it is really cool. However, he kind of really fucks up Cloud. And so what happens is Zack kind of imprints himself onto Cloud. And so the way Cloud acts and like his confidence and everything comes from Zack. Cloud is pretending to be Zack. Okay? But the whole reason why Cloud had that trauma is because he watches Zack die. There's a very poignant scene, and it's a hidden scene in the original game. You have to go out of your way to find it. But it shows like the aftermath of what happens and how Zack dies and how Cloud witnesses it, and it just fucks Cloud up, you know? So this character is pretty integral to what's happening internally with Cloud. And introducing that character is at this point is really fucking weird, because it's like, this is a weird scene, you know? Like, we don't really find out about Zack really hardly at all until, you know, near the end of the original game. So, at this point, I'm just like, wow, this is really weird, you know? And then we get to the end scene where I almost had a fucking panic attack, because the very end scene is when we're watching the characters leave Midgar, right? And it's a beautiful cutscene where you're watching all of them move away, and Cloud's like, oh, you know, I gotta go get Sephiroth and what have you, you know, like, you know, here we go, we got part 2. This is what we're gonna, you know, this is what we're carrying on, right? And then we see out of out of nowhere, we see in the distance, in the fog, we see someone carrying someone. You know, we got a shoulder. You know, someone's leaning on a shoulder and being carried, and it is Zack carrying Cloud towards Midgar. And I fucking was freaking out because I was like, no. They're gonna do some fuckery where he's walking towards the group and the group is gonna see them. And so now, all of a sudden, what the fuck? There's 2 Buster Swords, there's 2 Clouds. This doesn't make any fucking sense. And then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, oh yeah, who's the fucking director for this game? It's fucking Nomura. And guess what's like a staple of Kingdom Hearts? It's time travel, and it's alternate realities and alternate timelines, and timelines like colliding on each other, and aspects of each timeline going into the other, and it makes no fucking sense whatsoever. And remember what I said, they think ambiguity is profound when it is not. It doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever. However, thankfully, they don't acknowledge each other. They kind of do this thing where they just like pass by each other, and it's this little slow motion moment where when I first watched it, it symbolized to me what it meant to me is the fact that this is how Cloud came into the city. This is how Cloud is leaving the city. That's how I made it right in my head, and it made sense to me until I got online and realized that, you know, it's not. So it's implied that, and I skipped a whole other scene. So Zack is gunned down by like a multitude of Shinra infantrymen. Like he's fucking super dead. Like he's super dead. There's no fucking way he's alive. But they show in a cutscene in this game of him surviving that attack. And there's a moment where, so in the game, Shinra has this propaganda scheme, like this propaganda brand basically, called Stamp the Dog. And I'm not going to bore you with the details, but it's a piece of propaganda that they use, including a dog, right? This dog is like an army dog. It's just a piece of propaganda for Shinra. And so that dog breed in the game is a beagle. And so what happens in this scene with Zack is it looks like a bag of chips. A bag of chips flies by and it goes into super slow motion. They wanted you to see this. It goes into super slow motion of it being a different breed of dog. Okay? And for some people, this is indicating an alternate timeline where that idea of it being a beagle wasn't ran by. It was this different breed of dog. Trust me, doesn't make any fucking sense to me whatsoever. And why it has any merit on this story, I don't know. But a lot of people are considering this to be, you know, Nomura fuckery. But another reason why I waited so long to do this review is I kind of just wanted to gather my thoughts. And today, well, it wasn't today. It was like yesterday or the day before that. This thing called Ultimania came out in Japan, and it's basically just this big fucking book that has like interviews and notes and like all sorts of different information about this game, and it only came out in Japan. So people have been translating the fuck out of this thing, wondering if we can get some answers on what's going on. Some of it is helpful, some of it is really not. But I'll tell you right now, the end of this game really fucked with me hard, because it's like, and they really kind of ram it home. Like they really fucking hammer this idea home that like shit's gonna be different, is because when it pans up to go into like credits, it says the unknown journey will continue. And so further implying like, hey, this isn't your dad's FF7 anymore. Like this is something completely different. We're going to make changes, right? And so that's why it fucked with me so hard, is because I don't really know if I like this idea, because if you're just sitting here like thinking about it, it's gonna fucking kill you, because your head starts going towards like, well, if Zach's alive, and not only that, but like Biggs, Jesse, and Wedge are alive too, which is not nearly as big a fucking problem as Zach Fair being alive. But it's the fact that it's like, okay, these characters are going to be beloved. We can make merchandise off these characters, so we're not going to kill them off, you know. So it's just irritating to me, because like once you get rid of that profoundness of death, like once you take the seriousness out of death, it means fucking nothing at all. Like if a character dies and then is immediately brought back, that whole moment of them dying is a moot point. Like it doesn't fucking have to happen. You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't make sense at all. And it completely takes all of the poignancy out of it completely. Like, and it's frustrating as fuck, because like this is how Nomura is. Like, Nomura doesn't understand, and not only does he not know how to fucking end a video game, which is wild, you know, like he didn't know how to end Kingdom Hearts 3, and for some reason he didn't know how to end Final Fantasy VII Remake, even though it was like so easy to do. Just have the party leave Midgar. You didn't have to introduce all this fuckery with Zack Fair being alive, and it just doesn't make any sense. And if you keep going down this rabbit hole, you're like, well, what if they don't kill Aerithov? And it's like, well, is that really even a fucking game that I want to play? So like there's all these fucking questions that I have in my head, and I rationalize a lot of it. It's like, oh well, you know, like they were pretty on the ball with the majority of the storytelling in this game. What makes you think that they won't in the next couple parts? Like they're not going to change shit too drastically. You know what I mean? And so I'll tell you right now, the way that I feel about the Zack Fair stuff is that he's alive, but not really. So, and this could be like some translation error stuff, and like, you know, like the point doesn't really get across that well when you're translating it from Japanese to English. But in this Ultimania book that I brought up previously, the fact is that in this Ultimania book they're saying that Zack is alive. Like he's a mysterious character, and he's alive, and we're gonna find out why he's important to the story in the next couple games. And so I'm like, okay, well that makes sense for new people, but for old people, for the older, you know, like for the old fans, you kind of just left us like scratching our fucking head, like why is he alive? And so the way that I rationalize it is that he's alive, but he's not really. We're gonna see like the final moments of Zack in the next game, because there's a moment where, so in the original game, when he dies, it's raining and he's on a cliff, right? This is where Cloud watches him die, on a cliff in front of Midgar, and it's raining. So when the party leaves Midgar at the end of Remake, at the end of this game, it's raining and they're on a cliff. So I'm thinking that they're going to show those moments with him and Cloud, and then kind of like just like do like flashbacks where they show what happened, like why him and Cloud have a relationship at all, and then also show like where he dies. So I don't know, man. Like this is just stuff that I have to rationalize in my head. Also, there's two different quotes in this Ultimania book where it's Nomura saying, you know, obviously he's the one that said that Zack's alive, which doesn't make any fucking sense because it's a completely different change from the original game. And then after that, he says that I can't really tell you the true meaning of Remake yet. So it's like, okay, that's fucking weird. And then the other quote is from Yoshinori Kitase, which is, you know, like pretty much the only fucking golden goose in this whole debacle. So Kitase says, hey, you need to realize that we're not going to change anything too drastically. Just remember that. He's like, for the fans that are worried that we're going to change things a lot, we're not going to. The original FF storyline will continue. So, like, what the fuck are we supposed to expect here? That they're not going to? Or they are going to? Like, I don't know, man. And it's fucking... For a while there, it seriously was fucking me. Fucking, like, seriously fucking with me. Like, to the point where, like, I couldn't sleep, which is really sad. But, to end this off, I don't really know how I feel about this game. It's pretty wild that, like, the last 2 hours really kind of fucked up the whole experience for me. Because it really was, like... Seriously, I don't think it's a stretch to say... It might be. It might be a stretch for me to say this. But this is really how I feel. I think this is the best Final Fantasy game that they've made since 9. Like, I think it's better than 12. I think it's better than 10. It's definitely better than 13 and 15. Like, I just think it's a quality product with a fantastic battle system that's super fucking fun to play. Like, I'm still planning on playing it. I'm still planning on getting the platinum. I just didn't because the fucking hard mode is really fucking hard. And that's a trophy. And, the battle system's fucking amazing. And the soundtrack, like I said, is industry standard. I think it's it's a bar that has been fucking set by this game and by these people. And... I really don't see too many people clearing that bar. Like, I really don't. It's seriously, it's fucking amazing. It's phenomenal music. And it just works really well. And part of that could be nostalgia talking, but regardless, like, the original game had a fucking amazing soundtrack too. And that wasn't, like that. Those were MIDI sounds, like it wasn't, this shit holds up really well. And it just goes to show, like, what a new coat of paint would do to it. Regardless how I feel about this part, obviously I have to wait for the next, however fucking long it's going to take them to figure this out and develop the new title and give it to us. It seems to be in the news right now that they're planning on maybe doing shorter chunks of the game just to make it easier to develop and get out faster, which probably means that we're looking at like 4 to 5 parts for this game, which I think is asinine. But I mean, like, whatever they have to do it. And if it's at this high quality of a video game, like if it's at this level of quality of a video game, go for it. I mean, really, what the fuck do we gotta lose? You know what I mean? Like, and the saving grace for all of this, and regardless how I feel about anything, that original is still very, very playable. It's still very available to play. You can literally play that thing on your phone. It's on a Nintendo console, for Christ's sake. Like, it's available everywhere. You can play it anywhere. And it holds up. It really does. If you can get past, like, obviously we're living in a photorealistic world with video games nowadays where everything looks like how it does outside. Like, if you can get past that, really, if you can get past the idea that these characters are blocky, polygonal figures, and some of it doesn't look great and stuff, like, there's still, like, a 10 out of 10 masterpiece underneath all that shit. With story elements that are very much relevant today. Even more so, I would say. More relevant today than they were back in 97. But yeah, that's kind of where I wanted to leave it off. If you guys have any questions or anything, like, please hit me up. Like, I'm always down to talk about this shit. This is so much fun to do, and like, honestly, talking about it, like, really kind of helps alleviate the pain of not understanding the big brain that Nomura has. Like, it it really fucking helps a lot. So yeah, please, if you want to discuss, hop on Facebook or message me, whatever you guys want to do, just let me know. It's super fun to talk about this shit, and I'm so passionate about anything Final Fantasy VII, so please, and if you're a fucking hater, come at me with that shit, because I'll shut you down big time. But As always, you can follow us on social media, on Facebook at The Nerd Corporation, a podcast, on Twitter and Instagram, and you can shoot us an email at nerdcorppodcast@gmail.com. Anyways, thanks for listening. I appreciate it a lot, and I hope you have a good one. Hope you're staying safe, and I hope you and yours are doing well. Thank you.